What's up, everyone? Juan Weezar with another Own More Doors podcast. Today, we have an exciting show. We're going to be talking about squatters. I have Rob Casares, good friend of mine, here in the studio, and we have a nightmare of a story that we're going to be sharing with you guys. Rob, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, Juan. Thanks for having me.
Rob, so just kind of a quick introduction. You and I know each other. We're part of a business networking group here in Long Beach, Tippers. You've been a member for a long time. I've been a member maybe for 7 or 8 years, and it's been a good group. We have a group about, well, in our heyday, we were 60 to 75 business owners, and now we're probably, close to 50, but it's a really good group. So we've had a chance to get to know each other, build a relationship, work together. And you've been an insurance agent for a large reputable company for over 38 years, right? And that's what you do for a living. Today, you're also a housing provider. Rob, for the people watching the show, it's possible that they may have seen you on our YouTube channel when a month ago, we released a video where it took 9 months for the Los Angeles sheriff to come out and do a lockout on tenants that should have never been in your building, but they broke in and they just started living there. And they call the utility company and they get the electricity turned on and they get the gas turned on and they just move in like it's no big deal. And they don't care about paying rent. They don't care about 3-day notices. They don't care about anything. So we went there. I took the camera crew. And what we showed was like the actual sheriff lockout of the squatters. What I saw, and I wasn't sure what to expect in this situation. I wasn't sure if the squatters had like ripped the doors off. I wasn't sure if they had ripped the cabinets off. But what I saw is couches, dishes in the sink, TVs hanging, the heater was on. I mean, they were living a normal, cozy life. It's like no big deal. It's your property, Rob.
Right.
It's no big deal. We're just going to make ourselves comfortable here. And we really don't care that we're your tenant or not. Where we left off, Rob, in that video was the sheriff came, the lockout happened. They went in with guns. We were there with the locksmith. And we kind of wrapped up the video like, okay, that's it. This was kind of a 9-month nightmare. You didn't receive rent for 9 months. There's really no punishment to these people. Nothing happens to them. They get to go do this somewhere else. And I guess this is going to be part 2 on what happened later that day and what continues to happen now. You want to walk us through what ended up happening later that day?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Juan, thanks for having me. I mean, it's been great getting to know you through Tippers. It is a great organization here in Long Beach, and we're able to network and help each other with situations like this, right?
Yeah.
So, this was all new to me too. This is a brand new situation for me. Like most people that invest in property, you're doing it to, obviously help your family, help your financial growth, right? Put another bucket in your financial situation to help you with retirement planning. And so I had owned property before, right? But I'd never owned property in this particular area. I knew it was a slightly rougher area, right? But it was like, like everywhere else, it's slowly being gentrified. And so pre-COVID, everything had been going great, right? So I had some Section 8 tenants in there over the years that I owned it. I think I acquired the property in, I think it was 2005, right? And so, rents were lower than market rents, but I knew over time we would probably, as tenants moved out, improve that situation, and it was cash flowing. It was doing well, right? We put some money in it. It didn't require much of it. I worked with the city, and actually, we put some improvements because of some of the city grants that were available. So things were going fine, right? And then after COVID, when the governor issued the the stay on basically rents, right? That people didn't have to pay their rents. That's when things started to kind of turn for the worse, right? And so then we went through the eviction process, eventually moved some people out. That took a long time, right? So there was a period of time I was not collecting rents at that point. The state did make some of that up through, again, some programs that were available to people that were struggling. Um, but eventually, you know, they fell behind again, and then I had to go through the eviction process. And as you know, that takes time, it takes money, and that's when the squatter situation happened, right? So I don't know if it was 9 months or 10 months. It's been a long time that we've been dealing with this. I've reached. I mean, my property manager, went through the normal legal process, right? So I thought this was going to be something that, okay, in 60, 90 days we'll get these people out, right? But it with the courts and everything, it's just a really delayed process. And in the meantime, you're having to pay all your costs. I'm still paying my property manager, still paying expenses, and so um, it's just, and I have to continue to pay my mortgage, right? I mean, so as a property owner, you're just put in this position that it's really kind of helpless, right? I mean, there's nobody there to help you. They're, like you said, they're allowing people to just take over a property, right? Um, and again, you don't know what kind of damage they're doing, right? In fact, we lost one of the other units. One of our other tenants moved out because of the conditions, right? I mean, I think she felt unsafe with these new squatters that had taken over two of the units. And as you know, I mean, um, I've used a lot of different avenues. I went to a company that helps in this situation with squatters. Again, we ran background checks on these people. We don't even know who they are, right? So you have to start from the beginning and basically let's find out who's in your unit, right? If you can safely, right? So with the property manager, we went through that process, identified who they were, ran some background checks, and then we also went through the eviction process. So then we finally get the legal eviction, and then that's when you and I went when we finally had the lockout, right? So since then, when you left and one of the squatters pushed his way back in. I think you remember he kind of pushed the locksmith aside and said, "This is my unit." And we were looking at things in the garage and really, how do we dispose of some of this property? Now, as you know, you've got to give them 15 days to recover their property, right? And then if they don't recover it, then, but that's a whole, that's kind of a whole bag of worms, right? I mean, because you don't know, okay, how do you let these people pick up their belongings if they're just going to come back in and stay in the unit again? How do you
Correct.
physically get them out again, right? Because the sheriffs aren't coming at your beck and call, right? I mean,
No, and for anyone who hears this, kind of what I was surprised is the sheriff is there for one thing. They're gonna allow the locksmith to pick the lock. The sheriff goes in there with guns. They make sure that no one's in there, and then they leave. And then they leave. They're not there all day with
right.
you to kind of hold your hand or, hey, what if they come back? They leave, and they don't necessarily want to come back. In even though in your situation, the squatter came back, and at that moment that he was there, I don't know that we knew that he was the squatter. We like because we didn't really know who he was. He drove in there and tore the eviction notice off the door and said, "I live here," and went back in. And then you tried getting a hold of the sheriff, which even that was hard. It was hard to get through to the sheriff. It's so weird how they don't want you to call them. And then it was hard. Then you waited hours for them to come back, only to be told that, hey, that squatter that just moved back in, that we just forced out earlier, you're going to have to go through the process all over again, is what they told you.
Pretty much. That's kind of where you just go, okay, what just happened here, right? I mean, So because they provided a utility bill, right? A utility bill from Southern California Edison that said that they were a legal tenant. Um, and this is where the problem lies too. We have our utility companies that, without any authorization by the property owner or legitimate documentation that they are a tenant, they will turn on utilities for anyone. And so because of that, Juan, I mean, the sheriffs that came out the second time, because they did come back out later that afternoon, um, basically said there's nothing we can do at this point, right?
Because he had a utility bill in his name, which is, I mean, when I tell people the story, because I was really shooken up when I left on what had happened, and I said, man, this could happen to anybody. And I know that some people, they're so anti landlord, they're so anti housing provider that they have this perception that you're some corporation, which you're not. You own this with your wife. I mean, you guys are the epitome of like mom and pop. You don't own thousands of doors. You have this little fourplex and you've been doing your best. Um, it's in great condition. You're providing good housing in an area that needs it. And then you're getting taken advantage of. Really, like someone's stealing your property is what they've done. And the fact that this could be done so quickly and so easily, this could happen to anybody at any point. And the sheriff doesn't seem to care. And they're going to use the excuse of like, well, listen, like they're going to say, hey, this is unfortunate, but our hands are tied, is what they're going to say. And then you talk to city council and they really side with, well, we don't want homelessness. But I'm thinking, is it your job, Rob, to solve the homelessness problem?
No, absolutely
It's not your
not.
job.
Yeah, absolutely not. And you're right. I mean, for most people, I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm in a position that I can cover those excess costs, right? But it's a small business, and it's basically uh, put us in a position where we don't. It's so much uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen next, right? So I know that I'm hopeful. I mean, I had to reach. The one thing is I started to say, okay, how do I think outside the box, and who can help me, right? So I went to my own city council in the city where I live, and I knew people on the city council, and so I started talking to them, and they introduced me to the chief of police and who had contacts with the sheriff department, and so they connected me with someone, a captain that's been really has really been helpful trying to help me with this situation. So now, since then, the sheriffs have been out numerous times. They know who these people are now. They work with another department in another community department in the sheriff's department that I'm actually waiting to hear. I was supposed to hear back from someone from that department yesterday, so I'm kind of waiting. I'll follow up, but I'm hopeful they'll say that, look, at the documentation that you had was legit. Hopefully they'll go back in and we'll do a lockout, but this time because of the trespassing notices that they're not able to return. If they return, they'll be arrested, right?
It's frustrating when people hear this. I think we're all thinking, why aren't they arrested now? Why aren't they arrested now? And let me just add some context. That day that we were there for 2 lockouts. We got both lockouts. One guy did force his way back in and shut the door and force his way back in. That's what he did. The other property was boarded up with plywood over all the windows, and then there was a security door, and not just any Home Depot security door. This was like $1,000 plus security door that no one could break in. And at some point after that lockout day, they broke back in. So where this all started was we had 2 squatters. We got the squatters out. The squatters are both back in again. And the one thing I haven't mentioned is Rob, naturally so, he's taking, well, now we're a year into this of just no rent, complete loss. And Rob has no choice but to call and say, Juan, can you just get it sold for me? And we were hoping that after we got the first lockout, that would be it. And at this point, we've had to take the property off the market because nobody's going to buy it with squatters. Nobody. No one's even going to touch the property. So it's impacted the sale of the property, the value. I think it's got a stigma at this point, and it's just a problem. It's a major problem, and they're still there, and they're living. And I don't know if they go to work, Rob, or if they work or what they do, but they kind of come and go, as in, I have the right to be here, and I don't know who in their right mind thinks that this is okay.
What's even crazier is, one of them has all this gym equipment. He works out apparently on a regular basis. Uh, the two vehicles that we've identified, right? I don't know what year they are, but they're reasonably late Cadillac models, right?
Yeah.
I do understand from what they've told me that one does work, right? But again, I don't know what hours, where, or any of that information, and I really don't want to know at this point. I just want to get them out of my property, assess the damage, and hopefully there's not too much damage, um, and then move on, right? I mean, get it listed and move on. And I think the tides are turning, to some extent. I think if from my conversations with the sheriff's department, I mean, they want to help. Um, it's just that their hands have been tied, right? Because of what our government officials have done. So anyone listening to this, it can happen to anybody. The fact that I've been in the insurance business and I insured and have insured many, many commercial properties in my career, and this is impacting all of us here in Los Angeles County or in California, for that matter. And so, um, you know, one of my clients, who's a large property owner, he doesn't recommend to purchase property anymore in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
Because of these things, right? And that's disheartening, right? Because real estate has been the backbone, right? And I believe that we just need to make the right changes. We need to have the political fortitude to do things right, right? I mean, you can't put this on the back of just hardworking people that are trying to get ahead, right? Like I said, I'm not only, when you invest in a property, as you know, you take the risk, and you have to invest in that property. You have to follow, the law, right? You have to, tenants have a lot of rights, and as they should. That's fine, but these are not rights. These are not rights that anybody in a you know sensible situation would even
And I want to
consider.
be clear, Rob, yes, tenants have rights. Right now, this year, I'm the president of the apartment association. And when you're a housing provider, you need the tenants need you. The state needs us, the city needs us. The city needs us to provide housing, right? And we obviously there needs to be demand. The tenants do have rights. Squatters should not have rights at all. None. Squatters should not have rights. And that's kind of where we're at, is that they shouldn't be treated. And the fact that they could make a bogus lease if they did, the squatters are smart. They're like, oh, if I have a utility in my name, I'm good. It's so easy to go online and create a bogus lease agreement. That's not hard. And I guess that gives them extra protection. Squatters should not have any rights. And what they're doing is stealing. It's interesting, Rob. Like, and I was thinking about this. If someone comes to steal your bike today, you could call and make a police report, and hopefully the police does something about it. If someone comes and steals your property, which is essentially what's happened, there's nothing that's going to get done.
Right, it's crazy. It's I agree with you 100%. I mean, they don't have rights. It's caused me a lot of sleepless nights. Right, it's just very aggravating. Like I said, I just want to move on. again, I'm hopeful, right? That's just my nature to be positive and to hope that sanity prevails here, right? That again, people listening to you, Juan, and I appreciate you doing this because people need to know what's happening, right?
Yeah.
And this is just not good for our cities, our states, and whether it's California, anywhere. I mean, we've got to start protecting victims, right? I'm a victim,
Yes.
and we've stopped protecting victims in our country, right? In many ways, right? And so so yeah, I hope that we can get this resolved quickly, and it doesn't happen to someone else because it is happening.
Ye-
It's happening more than you think.
Yeah, and I know people are going to say, "Well, hey, can't you hire that the squatter guy? Like, can't you go in there with some guys and some bats?" I mean, it can't end well. I mean, I saw these guys who are the squatters who work out all day, who drive the Cadillacs. Like, it's probably not a good idea to go in there with. I mean, there's no way to like muscle them out, is what I'm saying. And I think from an outsider perspective, you think that you could do that, but certainly the sheriff department doesn't want you doing that.
No, and I did work with a company called Squatter Squad, right? I mean, you know, they were great to work with. I mean, I think they really empathized. They were trying to find solutions. We strategized. We talked about ideas. But yeah, the days uh, of putting someone going in and just squatting with the squatters, that's really not feasible, right? And then you've got to be very smart how you approach these situations with these squatters because there's safety issues, right? Even Squatter Squad, they have someone on their staff that's licensed to carry, right? And is like a bounty hunter, right? So has licenses to and has experience in dealing with these kind of people. Um, so you know, we were in that process. I'm not saying that process is something I wouldn't reconsider working with that particular company, but right now, um, I've gotten my some headway, with the sheriff's department, and so I'm going to see where that leads me. Right? I mean, I think that's where my cards are right now.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking when we get the lockout day, because that's going to happen again at some point, and hopefully sooner than later with the help that you're getting, you have to be worried that they're going to come back again, whether it's them or their friends. They're gonna, hey, just go back there. You could get a free year out of it. And we've seen them break back in, even when it's, I mean, that day you had contractors there, they're putting plywood. I mean, they are securing the heck out of it and they still manage to get in.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are they not going to manage? I mean, I don't, knock on wood. I don't want them to come in a third time, but it's when's it going to stop?
Well, I've kind of have a contingency plan, right? To have someone that I will allow to live there that's a friend
Yeah.
that will stay there, right, until we can get the property repaired and then listed and
Yeah.
sold, right? So, um, again, I shouldn't have to do that, but you're right. I mean, we'll try to do everything to secure it, going forward, right? And hopefully that I think that these squatters will get the word that if, because that property is now on the radar with the sheriffs that, hey, if you come back, we're going to come and arrest you. That again, I don't know that. I don't know, but I'm hoping that that's the strategy that or the help that they're going to provide.
You're right that it's happening more than we're told. At this point, I've not heard of it happening in Long Beach. I recently listed and sold a 4-unit building in North Long Beach. They were all vacant. And this was after dealing with your incident. And I told the owners, I said, you have to secure the building. Like, it helps me that it's vacant because from a marketing perspective, the buyer wants that
Right.
because they're able to set a new rent. And all this is pressure because of when they passed the rent control law. So like there's some of that is a domino effect for that, but all 4 units were vacant. And luckily we were able to sell it and no one got in. But in Long Beach, and I just think it's different in parts of LA, South LA.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it happens more there. And I'm not saying that it can't happen here. I saw what happened, how easy. Someone could just go in and you can't call the police. You can't call the sheriff. Good luck. Now they're there. Now you have to evict someone who's not paying, who's not your tenant. This is kind of the worst part. I tell people, it's kind of the slogan that I like, Rob, is real estate. It's not get rich quick. It's get rich guaranteed. And in the long run, you will get rich. It does. But this is one of those parts where it's not all easy. And this is probably the worst part, that someone could come in, steal, take advantage of you, and they won't even be prosecuted.
Yeah, that's frustrating. You know, I can't focus on that piece of it though. For me, I mean, I just want to get this handled. It's frustrating. It like everything in life, it's an experience, right? Um, when I listen to my wife Kelly about, Robert, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? And I would like to do some of those things, right? Like you said, would you like to just go in there with some, a crew and just, go the old school way, right?
Yeah.
Um, Absolutely. Would I like to just shut off all the power or take out the circuit, the electrical panels, right? Um, but realistically, that's not going to help me solve the problem. I've just got to work with the system, and hopefully the system starts to work for me, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like eh, you know, I advise this to everybody. We need to have we need to be involved politically. We need to know our legislators and our city council, and we've got to work together. We've got to work together to solve these problems because they're serious problems, right?
Yeah.
And we all know the homeless problem is a nightmare for California, right? So, but again, uh, we want a real estate market to be viable, right? Again, I'm in the insurance business, right? I want to insure properties, and that's a whole nother subject that we're going to cover, right?
Yeah.
Is what's happening in the insurance industry in California and nationally. But yeah, this is something that again, I don't wish on anybody, right? And I hope that one day I just look back on it and say, wow, I'm glad that's behind me.
Sure. Rob, and we'll end with this. If there's someone listening that could help, would you like for them to offer you help at this point? Someone who says, hey, I know someone, or hey, let me make a call for you, or someone that could help in this situation where we're trying to get squatters out?
Oh, 100%, right? 100%. I would be open to anyone that, again, has, an idea or just, a connection with someone within the city or again within the sheriff's department. Again, we've gotten some help, but we can always use more help, right?
Well, you've gotten help, but the problem's not solved.
Right.
I mean, they're
Right.
still there
Right.
as of right now. They woke up, they're having their coffee. And unless anyone think, sometimes people think, well, they would be homeless otherwise. Folks, I saw one of these people, muscular, tough looking guy. He could easily go get a job. This is not a guy that's going to be homeless if he got kicked out of here. One of the guys has a job, just doesn't want to pay rent. And so it's not like these people don't look like, in my impression, they don't look like they're on drugs. They don't look like they're disabled or handicapped or they need free shelter. They just look like someone who's taking advantage of the system.
No, 100%. And No, these are criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you call them. They're criminals, and um, in fact, because we did background checks, these guys have rap sheets. They've been identified by law enforcement their whole entire lives. They've been in and out of jail their entire lives. And again, this is where we're letting the criminal element just wreak havoc on our society, right?
And for anyone listening, I mean, if you have a house and there's a vacant house next to you, they could move in. Because you might be thinking it's not happening in my backyard, but it could, because they're all going to talk and say, you could do this anywhere. They're not going to force you out.
And that's where people, neighbors, and I mean, they should be calling the police department. They should be calling the sheriff's department. They should be calling their city councilman, right? The more people hear about this, the more again, it's the squeaky wheel, right? And people have to start getting involved for the benefit of everyone. Like you said, it can happen to you in your backyard.
Right. Rob, thanks for coming on here and sharing your story. It's not a nice story. Listen, I tell people, hey, invest in real estate and you're not going to regret it. And it's made more millionaires than any other industry out there. And all those things are true, but this is probably the worst part of owning units is having this problem. So I hope to have you back on, Rob, and I hope that in the future we could tell the story of like, hey, we got it sold and then we ended up buying something else. Obviously, we're not there yet, and it's currently off the market still. But thanks for sharing your story. It's not a good one, but hopefully we could bring some change, and involvement starts, like you said, with housing providers, with property managers, and everyone kind of coming together and to your point, making a little bit of ruckus behind this, because this is not okay.
No, it's not okay, Juan. And again, thank you for giving me a platform, right, and sharing this with your listeners, right, and I look forward to that day that we have it listed and escrow closes.
Yeah,
right?
awesome. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.